So what we have here is the pre-release material that was sent to us by the exam board for Unit 2, which takes place, as you can see here, on Wednesday the 13th of January 2021 in the afternoon. All of the questions on the Section A part of the exam will all relate to this case study in January 2021. There are a couple of instructions. You cannot take this material into the exam with you, but you will be given a copy of this on the exam day when you enter the exam room. And you're not allowed to take any notes into the exam with you either. Okay, so it will literally be you and a pen and a pencil, and that's pretty much it on the exam day. You'll get another copy of this and a copy of the exam paper. Tells us it's 4 pages long, and it's basically everything we need to know about the case study, and it gives us at the end of the document some things to look at so that we are prepared for the exam. So it tells us that it's about an organization called PHWSSE, World Sports Event. And it tells us that every 2 years, an organization based in Nice, in France, organize a world sports event tour, and it visits several countries where schools compete against each other. Now, the first thing we are told here is that members of the staff accompany the tour, and countries that are regularly visited include Canada, United Kingdom, USA, Dubai, Singapore, and Australia. And these events are advertised on the website. Now, straight away, we can start to think about what we've been learning in Unit 2, and we can think to ourselves, right, are there going to be any issues with any of these countries in terms of the Data Protection Act or the GDPR principles or the Information Commissioner's advice about data outside of the EU? And straight away, we've got Canada, we've got the USA, Dubai, Singapore, Australia. Some of these countries are outside of the EEA, outside of the EU, so that could potentially be a question that comes up. It tells us the event is held for 2 weeks and has a break for 2 weeks, and all equipment is then transported to the new location. It covers a range of sports, including football, cricket, athletics, lacrosse, swimming pools if they're available for things like swimming and water polo. Points are awarded, and the school awarding the most points is the winner. Okay, so again, we can start to think about where are these points being stored? What kind of devices perhaps are they looking to use to get this information sent to the storage area? Are there any issues around security, and so on and so on? When the event's tour is finished, the members of the staff return to Nice, the results are collated, and the website is updated, and then the website shows the country that scored the most points. So again, we can start to think about, are they likely to ask us any questions about the software that might be used to collect and to analyze any of this points data that's been collected over this 2-week period. The people who organize the event put an itinerary together. Now, an itinerary is like a calendar of events and where they're going to be on what date and how long they're going to be there and what happens during that time period. And that includes things like the countries, the dates, the sports, and the equipment. Okay, so we might start thinking about, again, what software might be good to store information. When the itinerary has been finalized, they contact an air freight distribution company to carry all of their kit to the next country. And it's shared through secure network access. So there might be questions around secure network access and what that might look like in terms of information that is secure in storage or in transit. Okay, the equipment's then transported by air, and the distribution organizes transportation on the ground. Customs declarations are different for each country. So there might be a question about data protection. When each event is completed, the equipment's then transported to the next event, and the air freight distribution company then calculate all the cost of moving all this stuff from one place to the other, And when it's all finished, the cost is then, worked out. And it tells us here on page 3 that each leg of the trip is calculated. So again, maybe there'll be a question on what might that look like, what might be the best software to do that, why might it be the best, bit of software, etc., etc. Okay, and then there's an issue here around currency exchange, and again, that there might be a question around software that maybe could convert currencies or something like that. Tells us about the cases. They're all barcoded, so there might be questions around barcode readers or apps on smartphones that can read barcodes or something like that. Tells us about a security-enabled web page, so there may be questions about encryption on web pages, security certificates on web pages, how they ensure the data on those web pages is only accessed by the people who need to access it, and so on. Okay. And then lastly, it tells us here that the secure web page is accessed to a live location, so we always know where this container is at any given time, and that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there may be questions around the data, the tracking of the data, the format of the information surrounding the tracking, and so on. We have an excerpt from a tracking information, so we can see that this has been scanned off the barcode, and on various dates these items of equipment arrived at various locations. So there may be questions around information styles or information formats, or how we might do something with this information to make it a bit easier to understand, and so on. This bit here is important because this is what the exam board is telling us we need to look at in preparation for the exam, because it's highly likely there are going to be questions on these topics. So, information formats and information styles that could be used by PHSWSSE on their website, for example, or advertising the event or their itinerary, and so on, and what the advantages and disadvantages of these formats and styles are. Different information sources. So where do they get the information from about the flights? Where do they get the information from about their location, and so on? And what are these categories of information, and what are listed, or what can we pick out of this case study in terms of who the holders of the information are from the categories we looked at way back in 1.1. Okay, it tells us here to think about the different protection measures that could be used to keep the data safe. It asks us to think about the different World Wide Web technologies, so that was intranets, extranets, and internet, and what they might use it for. Okay, and then finally, it's some questions about the quality of information, including the characteristics of good quality information, and why quality information is important for this organization. And obviously the contrary to that is, what if the information isn't good? What's that going to mean for these events, or for this kit that's being transferred and transported from one place to another? If the quality of information is bad, then is the whole thing going to grind to a halt? And at what point in the in the whole event might things go a little bit wrong? Okay, and the last page is just a blank page. So that's the case study. You do need to be familiar with the content. You do need to be researching the bullet points at the end, and you do need to have some understanding of the types of things you might get asked on the exam paper. Part B of the exam can just be any random question on any random topic from anything in the specification, but it is unlikely, if the question comes up in part A about security, that a question will come up again in part B, but it might do. Okay, so the message is, read the case study, be familiar with it, and be prepared.